Yep.
All right. So now we're starting Be'ezrat Hashem, the fourth and last portion of the Haggadah, which is the fourth Haggadah, if you will. Just to recap, we spoke about that the Haggadah that we read is broken into four pieces, right? We have Avadim Ayinu, we have Metehila Uvdei Avodah Zarah Ayu Avotenu, we have Tseulmad, and then finally what we're going to read in the name of Rabban Gamliel. So the Haggadah says Rabban Gamliel היה אומר, כל שלא אמר שלושה דברים אלו בפסח לא יעשה ידי חובתו ואלו הן פסח מצה ומרור. And then there will, Rabban Gamliel will go and give pirushim on what Pesach is, what matzah is, what maror is. This memra is copy pasted from the Gemara in Maseret Pesachim. Rabban Gamliel comes with a different angle on the hiyuv of Pesach, and he says that if you want to be Yotzei Yedei Chova, if you want to accomplish the mitzvah, and we have to understand the mitzvah of what? Is it the mitzvah of Pesach? Is it the mitzvah of the Seder? Is it the mitzvah of Korban Pesach? Right? You have to say these three words: Pesach, Matzah, Umaror. The Rashbam says in the Gemara, you have to understand the ta'am. You have to understand what Pesach, Matzah, Umaror means, not just only say it. And this is why the Baal HaGadah brings also Pesach Shayu Avotenu Ochlim Bizman Shevet HaMikdash Kayam Al Shumah. Why do we eat the Pesach? And give a small summary of each one. Now, what we need to understand in this portion of the Haggadah is if you want, we are praising, right? Because each Haggadah leads us to a praise, awareness, recognition, and praise to HaKadosh Baruch Hu through the chushim, through the amchasha, through the actual feeling, right? We need to sense through the senses. So this is why, for example, the halacha is when we read that on the word, when we say matzah, matzazu or maror ze, we raise it, right? We don't raise the bone. Or when we say pesach, why? Because we don't want to show keilu as if we are eating from the korban pesach outside of Yerushalayim, outside of the Bet HaMikdash, right? So for that reason, we don't lift it. We don't lift it because to remind us that it's still not Korban Pesach, but it's remembering Korban Pesach. So when we point out, right? So there's a few things that is happening. First of all, Rabban Gamliel says, Kol shelo amar. So there is the verbal expression. You need to say it. The Rashbam explains that you have to understand the meaning of it, right? Which is already your brain. And then you're going to have to point it out. You have to look at it. Pesach ze, right? So now is the senses. Maror ze, matzah ze. So here we see that we are taking our senses, we are taking our koach adibur, our speech, our intellect, and putting all this together to connect as practically as possible to each of the emblems, right, or representatives of the symbols of what Pesach is about or the Leila Seder is about. So we have the Pesach, right, the Korban Pesach. Then we have Matzah zo shanu ochlim al shumah. This matzah, why are we eating it? So there are few psukim in the Torah. Are we eating it because we didn't have time to bake it, or we eating it because it's not hametz, or we eating it because it's called matzah dimhemenuta, the matzah of the emunah, right? So the Baal Haggadah says, "Ashum shelo yispik betzekam shel avotenu le'achmitz." So the Baal Haggadah tells us, you know why we're eating it? Because there was no time to properly bake bread, and it happened to be the matzah. That's the opinion of the Baal Haggadah according to Rabban Gamliel, right? Now, the reality is that obviously, in practical terms, we didn't have a chance to bake properly the bread, but with a little bit of emunah, we know that that was done on purpose. HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't give us the time on purpose. Why? In order to reveal the real koach of the matzah, which is the ability to be pure and yet find true value without having to be influenced by a third party. What does that mean? What is the matzah? The matzah is the mix of flour and water, right? Versus the chametz, which is a mix of water, flour, and thyme. So, and the thyme is a factor that has nothing to do with the bread in itself, with the dough in itself, right? It's just that if you allow time to be to influence the dough, then it becomes chametz. But if you don't give it the time, it doesn't become chametz. It stays pure in its pure form. We're learning that the matzah, the purpose of the matzah, is to remind us that we don't need to let outside influence inflate us in order to feel important. And what does it take to be so lean and so regimented and so quick and so proactive in your essence, that to the point that you don't allow outside influence inflate you or influence you? What is it? You need the emunah. If you have emunah, if you believe in yourself and if you believe in your cause, right, there is no room for outside influence in your life. And outside influence equals to what? To hametz. This is a free time. When you give time to time in your work, you're the dough, right? The water is the Torah, the flour is your efforts, right? What is the flour? The flour comes from hittai, it comes from wheat. Wheat is what is labored. You work it, you grind it, right? There's a whole process until you get the flour. The flour is all your efforts, all your maasi, your actions. The Torah is how it brings all this together, all this flour that is so fragmented in infinite pieces, and puts it or glues it all together for something specific. And that's what the Torah is called mayim. Together with emunah, you will get the matzah. Matzah also right? The matzah is here to be, we say motzi matzah, right? The purpose of the matzah is to consolidate your potential and your effort in order to bring out the best and the purest version of yourself. Good. This is the matzah. The matzah. We're going extremely fast here. We're not.
But Rob, it has time. There's the matzah has time. 18 minutes. It's not that there is no time.
No, you're not allowed to leave it 18 minutes just like that. You have to work it, and for 18 minutes. And if you work it past the 18 minutes, it starts to become chametz.
Okay.
So you never let it go, right? And this is also, it's called also the bread of the herut, the bread of freedom, right? What is freedom? Freedom is when you're focused on what you believe in. You focus on your purpose without having to be dependent or having to comply to anything or anyone else. This is freedom. This is the matzah. So when Rabban Gamliel says you have to say Pesach, you have to understand that when we say Pesach, but we also understand Korban Pesach, etc. When we say matzah, we have to understand what matzah means. And finally, maror. So again, we're trying to connect on a sensitive level to each one of these topics. And finally, maror. מהו השומה? השום שמררו המצרים את חייבותיהם במצרים. We taste the bitterness so that we point out the bitterness to recall that our forefathers were subject to pain, right? Now the famous question is, the order is off, right? If you look at the order, it should be Maror, Pesach, Umatzah, right? First, there was the bitterness of Egypt, of the Mitzrim. Then after that, we did Korban Pesach. And when we left, we had Matzah. So why do we say Pesach Matzah, Umaror, and we have a Vav? We could have said Pesach Matzah Maror. We say Pesach Matzah Umaror, and the Maror, meaning that the Maror is on top of Pesach and the Matzah. When I say this, and that, so I'm taking the whatever subject the end is talking about and apply it on whatever came before. The pshat is, Chachamim tell us, it's because the Maror didn't finish. We cannot think that we are done with what Egypt did to us. We can't. The Maharal tells us we left out of Egypt quickly, but our Geulah, the final redemption, will be very slow. This is Umaror. It will be slow because of all the pain, all the pogroms, all the hate, all the challenges Am Yisrael will have to suffer throughout the exile of Am Yisrael until the Geulah. So even though at the end the Geulah is in front of us and we know it, the fact that we're exposed to so much pain makes it a very, very slow process. And it's based on Mechilta in Parashat Bo. This is why the Maror comes at the end. The Pesach, we did it. The Matzah, we did. The Maror, we're still dealing with it. And it's unfortunate, but I mean, we again in history, we are reminded of that hate. We're exposed to it, we're feeling it, we're sad from it. This is Umaror. This is Umaror. We're talking about the Maror of Bnei Israel before we got out of Egypt, but we're not discounting or fooling ourselves that it was then and not now. And that's for every generation. based on that, now there's a portion that is not brought in the Gemara. So says the Baal Haggadah, oh, you might feel now a little depressed, right? Oh, we have the Pessach, we have Matzah, and then we have to focus on Maro. So and the Geulah is going to be very slow, and it's going to be very painful, and it's been as slow as it can be, right? The answer is Bechol Dor Vador. You want to know how you survive through all this. Every generation, at every moment, every Bechol Dor Vador, כאילו הוא בעצמו יצא, כאילו the Baal Haggadah says כאילו הוא יצא, as if he got out. The Rambam in the Haggadah of the Rambam, he adds one word: he himself got out. We need to find a way to be so in awe of what HaKadosh Baruch Hu does for us, to be in such a have so much hakarat hatov, have so much emunah, have so much appreciation for what has been done during Yetziat for us in Yetziat Mitzrayim, so that I can connect to that power, I can connect to that influence and implement it today in order to overcome the umaro. This is the message. The Baal Haggadah basically closes his statement of all of Yetziat Mitzrayim, because from that, right after that, that's it. We're entering the Hallel until the end of the Haggadah. That's it, finished. Right now, we're closing the 4 different versions of the Haggadah with a statement. We're finishing after all this high, after all this emunah, all this acknowledgement. We finish with umaro, right? Let's not forget about that. Aval, okay, so what's the answer to it? And here is the answer: to overcome any pogrom, to overcome any anti-Semitic issues, fear, or pain, whatever it is, right? כאילו הוא בעצמו יצא ממצרים. We need to find a personal connection, and this is why we had to speak about a connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu on an emotional level, on an intellectual level, right? Freedom of the intellect, freedom of the heart, freedom of the actions, freedom of the senses, all those different versions of the Haggadot, to get to that part, to get to here, right here, just so that I have what to relate to feel Hashem took me out of Egypt. And the Baal Haggadah says, and this is not something that you only keep for yourself. Hashem took me out of Egypt for this, so that I can carry that legacy. I can pass it on. If you are able to live with the byproduct of the Pesach teachings on a day-to-day, this is what you will carry, and this is what you will transmit to your kids. Right? This is what it's all about. It's about conveying the message to the mishpacha, to the kids, the chacham, the rasha, the tam shelo yoda lishmor. Okay? ולא את אבותינו בלבד גאל הקדוש ברוך הוא, and reinforcing it, HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't only reveal himself to save our ancestors, אף אותנו גאל עמהם. When he took them out, he took us out with them. שנאמר ואותנו הוציא משם. למען נביא אותנו לתת לנו את הארץ אשר נשבע לאבותינו, in order to bring us to ארץ ישראל. in the words Ela afotanu ga'al imahem, he took us out with them. The pshat is that when he took them out, well, all their kids and grandchildren and generations after were taken out because they were taken out. So obviously everything that comes after was taken out too. And there is a deeper understanding of Imahem, is that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu took out Am Yisrael, he infused in every single individual throughout the generation the power to get out. No one should think he is stuck in a situation of that is called Mitzrayim. No one. Every one of us, and this is the final message, every one of us carries the power of exile, of redemption, the power of redemption. Every one of us carries the ability to break through. Mitzrayim does not apply anymore on Am Yisrael. We can choose to be in Mitzrayim, but we don't have to be in Mitzrayim. This is the key point. This is the top message of the Haggadah. That's it. This is what we go home with, and that's what we're going to keep in our heart for the rest of the year. All the way until next Pessach. I am not stuck. I can break through. I am not stuck. I can break through. How? It's all within you. Imahem, otanu ga'al imahem. When he took them out, he took us out. He gave us the ability to free our own self. How? Okay, go back to the Haggadah, learn the Haggadah, and everything that I've taught you until now is so that you can implement it and be free. Earn your own freedom. If this is clear, and this is what it's all about, then we go back to the portion of the Gemara of Rabban Gamliel. לפיכך אנחנו חייבים להודות. Therefore, if Hashem has given me the ability to free myself and to be independent from everybody else and not to be stuck at any point of my life in any situation, right? Do you understand how valuable and how powerful this is? There's nothing greater that HaKadosh Baruch Hu can give us. Impossible. There's nothing better than that. Therefore, אנחנו חייבים, it's an obligation, it's a duty to thank, to praise, to compliment, לפאר, לרומם, להדר, לזר, לברך, לקלס. For the one who took us out of Egypt, right? על כל הניסים, for all the miracles. הוציאנו מעבדות לחירות. He gave us freedom. He took us from despair to simcha, from mourning to Yom Tov, darkness to light. ונאמר לפניו שירה חדשה. Hallelujah. And now comes the hayavim, comes the obligation. And what's the obligation after all this? Is the Hallel. Now comes the obligation of the Hallel. We would think that the Hallel cannot be forced. Can I force you to praise me? I cannot force you to praise me. It's impossible. You can fake it, but I cannot force you. That's what, or you praise or you don't. So what does it mean? Hayavim. Rav Amram Gaon and the Rambam also, both say that if a person does not recognize the impact of the miracles that were done to Am Yisrael on his life, is a kfui tova, kofer ba'ikar. Is a person that is kfui tova. He's disrespectful to the akarat atov he should have for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If a person does not recognize it, not what has been done in the past, but the impact it has on me today. If I cannot see how Yetziat Mitzrayim influences my life, then there's a big problem. But if I see, as Chayav is a pashut, it's an obligation to say the Hallel. The Hayavim is not imposing. It's not imposing. It's logical. Hayavim is so logical. It's obvious that we have to. It's a must. It's a must. It's a must. And Asani, you're making a great point, which we're getting there. Is that if it's a must, and now I understand what I have to do, right? It's an obligation. What do you mean? You see what HaKadosh Baruch Hu has done for me? It's a miracle. The fact that Am Yisrael exists today is a miracle. So who is it impacting? Me. I'm benefiting from Geulat Mitzrayim every minute. Me as an individual, me as a family, me as a community, and as a people today. And whoever is insensitive to it, kofer ba'ikar, he's going against, he's rejecting the fundamentals of the connection of Am Yisrael and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is where the bond is officially made, right? When HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes and takes us out of Egypt, that's when we become a nation. That's when we become a people. We used to be families, different families of one same great-great-grandfather. That's it. We get out of Egypt, we're a nation. That's when the bond becomes obvious and clear to all. If I don't recognize the impact it has on me, says Rav Amram and Rambam, you don't belong. Shame on you. Shame on you. How dare you? Not to talk about the collateral damage it does not on you, but on the community. When a person is insensitive and rejects his obligation and responsibility to continue this legacy, to praise this legacy, it has a collateral damage on his family, on the community. It's a terrible thing. For that reason, chayavim lehodot. It's an obligation. So we're not forcing. It's just common sense. Now, going back to your question, is that what you should feel when we say Vayosha, the Shira? At the end of the Lifyekach, what do we say? Venomar lefanav Shira hadasha hallelujah. We say a new song, right? So obviously, when you sing, you're expressing. We spoke about it in the beginning of Ashirashi. When you sing, you're revealing and expressing something, an emotion that's very deep, that comes out in a specific way to praise. Yeah, you cannot sing to HaKadosh Baruch Hu if you don't feel it. And that will be the state of mind and the emotional state of all Am Israel when they're going to say, Vayosh Hashem. Az Yashem Moshe Nitzran Tashira Azot Hashem. But what's interesting, what does it mean? V'nomar lefanav shira hadasha, a new song. It's not hadash, we're saying Hallel. What's new about Hallel? Every Rosh Chodesh we say it. With generations we say it. What does it mean, hadash? Hadash what's new about the Shira Hadasha, Chaim Tovim? What's new about the Shira Hadasha? If the song comes from your soul, tonight you have a new soul. Your neshama is Hadasha tonight. Tonight you're refreshing, you're renewing and rejuvenating your essence. The night of Pesach, it's something, you're a different person. You're creating a rebirth of emunah, of bitachon, of connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So to you is a shira hadasha. It must be hadash. It must be a new shira. It cannot be just the Hallel. Because every single time you read the Haggadah, you will connect to a different point. You're in a different place every year of your life. You're never in the same place when you sit at the Seder table. So many factors change. So many influences have impacted our behavior, our thought process throughout the year. So my way, the maze I have to go into in order to get to the Hallelujah comes from a new place. So I am Hadash, and if I am Hadash, my Shira Hadasha, yes, it's a new song. It's a new song. If we don't feel rebirth, if we don't feel like we are born again with new ideas, with new responsibilities, with new emotions of strength, of connection, we missed the boat. Something went wrong on that Leil Seder. This is where we need to be. By the way, we didn't even start eating the matzah yet. But this is where we need to be to start doing the mitzvot of Pesach, to start really getting into the heart of Pesach, which is the achilat matzah. So, yeah.
Beautiful.
I thought you asked me another question, Stanley. Yeah. So, okay. Be'ezrat Hashem u'besiyata dishmaya. This brings us to the completion of the Haggadah as a Haggadah. Right? Obviously, it's not the end of the Haggadah, because we still have the rest of the Haggadah to finish. But now it transits us to it throws us to a completely different sphere that is called the Hallel, the Shira Hadasha. And the Hallel is that's what we need. Okay? That's what we need for the second cup. The second cup, Veitzalti, saved you. That's it. At that point, we need to recognize, we need to be on a super high. And that's what will carry us until the end of the Seder. That's what will carry us. That's what we need to eat the matzah and taste the kedusha of the matzah. This is what it takes us to taste the maror, to taste the korech, to taste shulchan orech. And this is what makes the major difference between a seudat Yom Tov and the seudah of the Seder, Leila Seder of Pesach. Be'ezrat Hashem. So now, finally, I know we've been talking about it for a long time. Be'ezrat Hashem, next year, that's it. We're starting the Hallel, and we're going to focus on the Hallel, obviously, Agamur, with the Pirush of the Maharal Miprag. Be'ezrat Hashem.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
שיהיה לנו שבת שלום, and may we be zoche to tap into that high then today.
Amen.
טוב.
Love you, Rob.
Together.
בהצלחה